This topic is actually quite easy to cause a quarrel. But I still hope to analyze the two games objectively. Whether it is Genshin Impact or Tower Fantasy, they are both successful games. More importantly, they are all Chinese companies' game. Genshin Impact used Unity engine to develop, reached the peak level in use. It can be said that they show the extreme performance of the engine. Tower Fantasy uses Unreal Engine 4. The use of the engine is also excellent. The Unreal Engine official personally wrote about the technical application of Tower Fantasy. And Tower Fantasy was invited to participate in the Unreal Engine exhibition in Shanghai. From here, we can see that both of them are games with a high level of technology. Let's first build a consensus. Put aside the unreasonable play of the players on both games and don't talk about it. These two games belong to the pinnacle of technology in China. With this consensus, let's get back to the conversation. Xiaofeng downloaded and played when Genshin Impact started public test. But the experience at that time is outdated. So right now I deliberately borrowed an account from a friend. I was going to say it in the order of game evaluation, but it feels a little cumbersome. Let's start with the deepest feelings. Genshin Impact is better than Tower Fantasy in role display. To put it directly, players are more fond of game characters in Genshin Impact. Why am I not talking about characterization here? Because in terms of the character's personality and characteristics, Tower Fantasy is not bad. But in terms of showing the characteristics of the characters, Tower Fantasy is really not as good as Genshin Impact. The role of Genshin Impact is bound to the type of weapon, and the ability to explore the world. This makes the players in the game roles are more functional. For example, if I want to hurry up, you have to use the role Sai. And because I use this role frequently, she will show in front of me for a long time. It also gives me a better understanding of the role. And it's easier for me to like this character. The motivation for secondary creation is also stronger. Tower Fantasy is different. At the earliest time of public test, the character is bound to the mimicry effect. At that time, many players used powerful characters, such as Tsubasa, Samir, by Yue Kue, Crow, Shiro, the more popular character Meryl. At that time, Tower Fantasy's roles were the easiest to be remembered by players. These characters are also the most impressive for the veteran players. Because the role is displayed for a long time, it's easier to understand the role. It's not that Tower Fantasy doesn't set voice and personality for the character. But today's players mostly use up characters, or customize the character by appearance customization system. As a result, we don't know much about the characters. If you don't believe me, you can recall the voice of the character. How many characters do you remember in full voice? Tower Fantasy separates the exploration function from the role. Role mimicry effect can be opened without using the mimicry. It really gives players freedom of choice. But at the same time, ToF gave up the opportunity to show its roles. So even if players like a certain character, you don't show him her. There is still no way to understand him her deeply. In the course of time, you will find that your understanding of the character not as good as the understanding of weapons. Take another look at the following two videos. What do you focus on when watching the Battle of Genshin Impacts? What do you focus on when watching the Battle of Tower of Fantasy? The focus of Genshin Impact's battle is on the role. You will pay attention to what the role poses in the fight. What are the small details that attract you? And in the Battle of Tower of Fantasy, your focus is on weapons. You will pay attention to the attack mode and scope of the weapon. Why is this? Because the weapon of Tower of Fantasy is bound to an action module, not the character itself. This is still the difference in role presentation. But this is not to say that Tower of Fantasy has no advantage. Tower of Fantasy is more focused on the battle itself. Fighting is also more refreshing and passionate. The focus of Genshin Impact's battle is the performance of the characters. The Battle of Genshin Impact is more like a performance. Tower of Fantasy is a hardcore challenge. Defeat one powerful enemy after another through operation. From the perspective of experience, the Battle of Genshin Impact is a visual enjoyment. The Battle of Tower of Fantasy is a brisk combat experience. Based on this, my advice is, the character of Tower of Fantasy is now unbound with fighting or exploring function. Low value does not deserve players to use mimicry. Therefore, it is recommended to enrich appearance customization system. Take the route of differentiation with Genshin Impact. Let the players focus more on the costume of the character, not liking the role itself. Because no matter how many tricks and details you design for the character, as long as the player doesn't use it, it's all futile. Although Tower of Fantasy tries to use skins for characters to improve the utilization rate of players, but it is still not as attractive as the appearance created by the appearance customization system. Tower of Fantasy should increase the material of appearance customization system, so that players can create their favorite anime characters. If they're worried about instance right, don't have to be exactly the same. It's just that the approximation can satisfy the players. This way can also increase the attractiveness. You can cooperate with Tuber in customizing roles. I will issue a special video to talk about this later. After talking about the battle, besides the plot, Xiaofeng is author in the plot area of Tower Fantasy. Although I continue discovering the hidden plot and detail of Tower Fantasy, but the plot of Fantasy Tower is still unsatisfactory. It's not that instance writing is bad. On the contrary, the setting and instance writing of Tower Fantasy are very good. Tower of Fantasy has a grand world outlook and novel settings. It dabbles in the reflection of omnium energy and the discussion of human nature. But the plot just can't tell a wonderful story. It's like a comparison between the Mysterious Sea and the Elden Ring. Mysterious Sea is genre film and television plots. It looks like watching a Hollywood movie. Shocking. And the plot of Elden's Ring is a clue patchwork genre. Need a lot of textual research and collation. It's memorable. The plot of the Soul series game is not bad. But when it is put on mobile games, it is very problematic. Not many players will look for these things carefully. And the clues of Tower of Fantasy are still very few. Even if I have dug 3 feet into the ground. But there are still many clues that can't be reached. There's even the possibility of violating past settings. The plot has always been a critical point of Tower of Fantasy. Vera's plot is a little better. But at the same time, there is another problem. Skipping button. How much influence does the skipping button have on the plot of Tower of Fantasy? To put it simply, when you use the skip button, is tantamount to giving up the plot completely. There are many hidden clues in the instance writing of Tower Fantasy. You need to figure it out before you can get the information. If the player chooses to skip, then she don't know what the plot is about. Genshin Impact did a good job on this point. The plot of Genshin Impact cannot be skipped, which be criticized by many people. But that's where it succeeds. This time I've already account. Who I'm looking for are 2 little sisters. The only thing they ask of me is, don't do the task. Because Summer just opened. They want to see the plot. The plot of Genshin Impact cannot be skipped. So playing this game for players is like reading a novel. They've been catching up on the plot updates. Then you'll ask, Aren't there some players who don't like the plot? There are even people who have asked others to help pass the plot. How to explain this? This is actually screening. Players who can't accept there is no skip button either choose to continue to endure, or just quit and choose another game. But until now, Genshin Impact never offered the skip button. Obviously, there are more people who love the plot. Many players are willing to watch the plot. The motivation for secondary creation will also be higher, because they know more about the world. Will also feel more immersed. Tower of Fantasy has set a precedent in the plot. Players are indeed more willing to accept the skip button's existence. So my suggestion is to take the skip button a step further. Make it no longer just skip a conversation, but skip the whole plot. If players don't want to watch the plot, procrastination only makes people bored. Why don't we be direct? Skip the whole plot. Directly give the rewards. But that's not to say that Tower of Fantasy doesn't do anything about the plot. Instead, you have to let the players who skip the plot know the story. The plot review function should have been on a long time ago. In addition, ToF need to put more plot clues in the big world. Add additional dialogue to the plot of NPC. The cinema in Mirror City is about to open. It is suggested that the official should make a plot video to play it, so that players who skip the plot can also understand the plot. If ToF official need, I can do the whole process explanation of the plot of Tower of Fantasy. Although I can see the efforts of the production team in terms of the plot. But the plot of Fantasy Tower is beyond the control of a few people. This is a world no less than The Witcher. Need a large amount of instance writing and settings to enrich. If Tower of Fantasy really wants to make the plot work, at least reach Genshin Impact's instance writing capacity. The games of Tower of Fantasy and Genshin Impact are actually very interesting. The relationship between them should not be competition, but should be complementary. Genshin Impact achieved the extreme of a single-player game. Exploration is more immersive. With a slow pace, you can really feel the existence of Teyvat, because of the use of mapping. So it's richer in detail. Tower of Fantasy focuses on multiplayer, a standalone quality game. You can also play with many people. This is the dream of many standalone players. The pace of Tower of Fantasy is faster, although Ida Star is not short of details. But you won't notice it, because the player's tempo is too fast. The vehicle can be used on the road. The route is always in a straight line. If they don't make a detour, players can't find out the surprise around the corner. Fortunately, the map of Tower of Fantasy does not have a main city. Otherwise, you will find that the players of Tower of Fantasy climb the wall into the city. There are few people who walk through the door. This will greatly destroy the sense of immersion in the game. After all, no brave man climb the wall every day to take up the task, is it? The binding of characters with weapon and exploring and no plot skip button. These two are not only contention points, but also shining points for Genshin Impact. Tower of Fantasy doesn't have these two features. But at the same time, ToF also lost the players' familiarity and love of the role they brought. If it goes on like this, even if there are more characters in Tower of Fantasy, players still can't remember them. In fact, compared to the role, the weapon of Tower of Fantasy is easier to be remembered by players. There is no good way to solve this problem. Since players are unwilling to use characters, then what can be done is only adding roles display time in the game. Make the character more existential. The new version of Shanghai Apartment of Tower of Fantasy. It's a good direction to visit NPC. I hope there can be more character display and interaction. In fact, there is another plan, which is to change Mia. Can transform Mia into a mini NPC follower. Then play the characteristic voice of the character. This can also deepen the player's understanding of the character. Xiaofeng played Genshin Impact through this loan. I also found that it is difficult for Tower of Fantasy to reach this height in China, because Tower of Fantasy is too hard. If you let a game rookie play Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy, you will find that he will prefer to play Genshin Impact, because Tower of Fantasy itself has an entrance threshold. If you don't believe it, you can look at Tower of Fantasy players around you. All have a certain understanding and foundation of the game. Otherwise, you won't be able to insist on playing Tower of Fantasy. This reason has something to do with the members of Tower of Fantasy production team. What they wanted to do at the beginning was a free action game with an open world. Many of the production team are veteran players. It can be seen from the moves and mechanisms of weapon design. Their understanding of the game is higher than that of ordinary players. These fancy mechanisms, an accidental one can ruin the game. But instead of trying to increase the game damage number system, instead, each weapon makes a distinction. Add more interesting ways to play. But these are simply disasters for game rookies. Compared with Tower of Fantasy, Genshin Impact is easier to get started. Skills introduction is also more straightforward. A low threshold means a larger number of players. Therefore, Tower of Fantasy is very easy for newcomers to the game to quit in this respect. Then for the operation. Tower of Fantasy has two-stage jump, air attack. Sprint in the air. Magic time. Source organ. These are the carnival of action gamers. But it's too complicated for newcomers to the game. Before they figure this out, they just think it's too complicated. Often, where am I? Who am I? Moving too freely becomes a disadvantage. It will feel more deeply in the experience of competitive play. The enemy on the other side is omnipotent. I just can't catch up and run away. This kind of hardcore operation is also the reason to dissuade newcomers. Xiaofeng's advice is to keep it as it is. But to add something like a master apprentice system. The newcomer really needs a master, when there is no one to carry it. Tower of Fantasy has a very hardcore. The production team should no longer measure the difficulty by their own standards. Instead, we should pay more attention to the experience of the newcomers. Only fresh blood injection can keep the game alive. In 2 years of operation, Genshin Impact has figured out his own suitable operation route. So their decisions are not influenced by the players. It turns out that they chose the right path. Tower of Fantasy has only been in operation for 9 months. Still groping for trial and error. My suggestion is to make a differential operation with Genshin Impact. The two games should continue to complement each other, instead of doing overlap. The standalone version of Tower of Fantasy is Genshin Impact, and the multiplayer version of Genshin Impact is Tower of Fantasy. Although Tower of Fantasy has been working hard on multiplayer experience at present, but it's not enough. My suggestion is to learn from the traditional MMORPG. Establish the connection between the players. The guild should have a more sense of existence, but do not increase fixed point activities. Never let players go to work. According to the current player composition, Tower of Fantasy has leisure players and hardcore players. How to take into account the experience of two waves of players at the same time is the top priority. Most of the current instances situation are that hardcore players help leisure players. This is not good. I suggest instances can add some mechanisms for two-person time-limited switches, so that leisure players can participate in the instances mechanism. And the boss still can't get through without the help of leisure players. This can also improve the role of leisure players in instances in disguise. even if it's just a switch. But the leisure players must have a sense of participation in instances. It's just a thought. Seriously, if the instance doesn't have what leisure players can do, no sense of participation at all, hardcore players will only feel burdensome. I just wanted to write casually. As a result, it is almost 4,000 words. Then say a few more words. Whether it is Genshin Impact or Tower Fantasy. In Chinese games, they all belong to the forefront of the game. As long as these two games, every game in the future will be compared with them. But there is no need to compare these two games, because it's not on the same track. Let's just say, for players who only like standalone, Tower Fantasy can't retain them. Players who only like to be multiplayer online, Genshin Impact can't retain them. On this point alone, the main distinction between the two games is made. It is destined that the core players of the two games will not be the same kind of people. Maybe many people don't understand, since Tower Fantasy is really as good as I said, why the game is not well known at present. In fact, there is only one reason: publicize. What other game problems or bug problems? None of them matter. In this day and age, publicity is everything. Why bad money drives out good money? Why is the market environment so bad? Because this is the age of operation. Products are good, but the publicity is not good. It's just useless. The product is poor, but if it is well packaged, there will be no less money. Give a simple example. Ping Jojo. What a criticism this software is. But it did a good publicity. Advertisements are everywhere. So even if you and I don't use it, there will still be others to use it. We will care about the problem of word of mouth. But there will always be people who don't care. They will become new customers. Tower Fantasy's current mobile phone optimization and Genshin Impact have chosen two paths. Genshin Impact is to achieve smooth operation by reducing the resolution of the mobile phone. But because of Genshin Impact's painting style, even resolution reduces. The visual perception will not be very bad. Tower Fantasy is different. It still uses high resolution on the mobile phone. Optimization is achieved through dynamic loading and map reduction. The impression will be worse. The player's experience is naturally lower. Plus the PC license of Tower Fantasy has not been applied for a long time. So the players brought by publicity will also be lost. The loss outweighs the gain. So why don't ToF calm down and do the content? Xiaofeng is just an ordinary player. I care about whether the game is fun or not more. But the unreasonable people in game players does have a bad influence. The unreasonable people doesn't just mean who he is. They exist in all fields. Anime, games, music, entertainment, military science. There will be such people in every circle. Just hope that we can look at it rationally. I hope everyone will be proud that Genshin Impact and Tower of Fantasy are Chinese games, instead of letting foreign players see jokes about infighting among Chinese players. That's all for this issue. Follow Xiaofeng. Take you to experience a different Tower of Fantasy.